Hey there, right, okay, Paul Murphy and my book, The Fabbles of Solo Years. Right, although this book is a Mickey take of the Beatles' solo careers, it does go back in time when they've done major things. So, on the 21st of May 1976, the BBC did this series of Beatles. So anyway, BBC One in the UK broadcast the first, so they go back and discuss the origin of the Fabbles now, from 76. Entitled The Fabbles Story, presented by Brian Watlow. This initial episode is called The Birth of the Liverpool Sound and features various interviews with and about the Fabbles, covering the period from 1960 to spring 1961. Archive interviews describe how the band started. Jim: me mother had a guitar and she showed me a few chords. It was difficult at first because she didn't have any strings on the guitar. Can't you put some strings on it, ma'am? I'd ask. Oh, Jim, that's only for virtuosos, she replied. And you're a Capricorn, she added, which made me doubt she knew much musical terms. That's a very strange voice I'm using. After a few months, I thought I was getting good, so over time, when she was asleep, I'll just read it in my own voice, I'd sneakily put a string on the guitar. After a month, I had 22 strings on it. The first chord I learned was C diminished, sharp minor 7th augmented, carry the 5 and show your workings. It sounded shit. Still better than Cliff, I mused, and I formed a band. I called it the Quarrymen, because people made us play in a quarry 30 miles from anywhere. I'll show you all, I yelled at them. Show us from a bit further back, we can still hear you, they replied. I was at art school at the time, because in those days, if you could draw a willy, teachers used to want to keep you around. Me Auntie Mummy used to say to me, a guitar's all right, Jim, but you'll never make a living out of it. It became a family joke. Every night she used to say it as she beat me senseless with a thing. I found it inspirational. I went out at night and clubbed people unconscious with it and nicked their wallets, proving I could make a living with a guitar. After a couple of months, me mother's guitar was all smashed up, so I ordered one out of a magazine. Guaranteed not to split, said the ad. Sadly, I'm short-sighted, and the magazine was a Catholic Times, and next day a choir boy had arrived. I had to send him back, cost a fortune in stamps, and took me ages to squeeze him through the postbox slot too. A passing priest gave me a tube of something he had in his cassock. I know how to play postman with choir boys, he smiled, and that got the job done. Some of those dodgy terrors, weren't they? I went home and ordered a guitar from a music magazine this time, and I arrived from South Africa the next day. I will never play a concert in South Africa due to this injustice, I smiled. We'd rather have the boat fare home. Where did I get to? I first met Paul at the... I'm so sorry, my eyes aren't working very well here. I first met Paul at the garden fete of St. Peter's Church, Walton. My mouth isn't working well either. I was playing an early version of Good. Sings, I don't believe in Beano. I don't believe in Kiss Chase. My band was performing on a stage in a field behind the church. The vicar insisted. In case of lightning bolts, he said. But it's a sunny day, I replied. Yeah, that's not the kind of lightning bolts I'm worried about, he said. When I first met Paul, he told me I wasn't playing guitar chords. What are they, banjo chords, I asked? No, flute chords, he replied, the smart-ass little bastard. He always knew more chords than me. He showed me one, C diminished 7th. I broke 3 fingers trying to play it. One of them my own. I had to decide whether to let Paul into the band or to be a nobody all my life. I decided to let him into the band. Well, it's better to be a millionaire and sympathise with the working class rather than to be one of the working class. Paul. I met Jim around 56. I went to this do at a church fete in Walton. I guess you could say we were fated to meet. Put that in, I've been working on that one for 15 years. He had this band, the Quarrymen. He got a lot of work at church dues because he'd spelt it wrong and his ad card read, book the Quarrymen, 5 teenage boys to entertain you. Jim was singing Come Go With Me, but he didn't know the right words, or chords, or the title of the song. I was really impressed and showed it by pissing myself laughing. After their set, I showed him how to tune his guitar and tie his shoelaces. Then I played a medley of Little Richard songs on the piano, some Gene Vincent on guitar, and some Rachmaninoff on the flugelhorn. Jim was impressed and allowed his friend Pete Shotone to beat me to a pulp. A few days later, I was cycling to the high street to get my eyebrows raised another 5 inches when Shotone flagged me down by throwing a flagstone at me. As I lay there in the mangled wreckage of my bike, he said, Jim wants you to join the band. Did he like my playing then? No, he liked watching me beat you up and he wants to see it every night. It inspired my later solo hit, Sings, Every night I just want to go out, get thumped in the head. Naturally I accepted Jim's offer. He didn't say no to Jim. Ivan yawned said no, and me never saw his hamster again. Felt him, yes, as he wriggled away up Ivan's intestine, but saw him? Never. Poor old Ken Branch. He had it worse. He never saw his dog again. People in the pool thought he went to hospital for a colonoscopy. It was actually a colonoscopy. I started to teach Jim how to play our favourite rock songs, and we gradually changed our style to being a rock band. Originally they were a skittle band. They would stand in an alley and people would roll balls down to knock them over. It was difficult at first when we changed our style, because then people would throw rocks at us. This is your bloody fault, Jim would say, as he used me as a human shield. We need a lead guitarist, I told him. What, to improve our sound? No, so I can use him as a shield. I told him about my friend Grunge, and Jim said to bring him down. I told Grunge, and he had big ears. That brought him down. He was in a good mood. He was in a good mood up until then. Grunge. I met Paul at school. I hated him. Later I changed my opinion and despised him. He used to look down on me. I wouldn't mind, but it was when I was asleep in bed. He was 7 months older than me and never let me forget it. I was shagging this girl in my car one night and he tapped on my window and yelled, "I'm 7 months older than you." Proper put me off my stroke, it did. Never did get the stain out of the upholstery. I saw Paul in town one day early in 1958 and he said he was in a band, that they were all crap except him, and that if they didn't make him leader he was going to sue them for all their pocket money, and would I like to join, and what was my resistance to large rocks. I went down to a rehearsal they were having and met Jim. I was only 14 and I can still remember his first words to me. "Hello, Sonny, have you lost your mummy?" Ha ha ha. He liked a joke, did Jim. "Be careful what you joke about, mate," I replied. Jim thought I was too young to be in his band, but Paul said he was going to hide behind the curtains at future shows, and that meant Jim would have to take all the rocks himself. By this time the audience had started throwing cheese rolls at the band as well, so Jim was going to have to let me in the band or give up rock and roll music. They auditioned me again and made me play the song Raunchy on the top of a bus. It wasn't easy. I kept hitting my head on low bridges. Jim said I could join and gave me a lift back home that night in his guitar case. Okay, 2 more bits here. We started getting a good sound going and picking up some gigs. But there were 23 of us in the band, so we only had 8pence each from a show. Luckily, with Paul in the group, he'd wind someone up so much that they'd leave every couple of days. So by the end of the month, it was just the 3 of us and a drummer. That became a constant problem because each week Paul would get on the drummer's case, sometimes get on his kit, and they'd quit. Then we'd have to start looking for another one. After 4 months, a drummer in Liverpool that we hadn't had in the band at some time was rarer than fresh air coming out of a cow's arse. We used to tell promoters, "The rhythm's in the guitar." "We haven't got any guitars either," they'd say. "You have spotted the flaw in our submission," we reply, and walk home dejectedly. Grunge. We tried anybody that could count up to 4. We were so desperate we'd give some of them a clue. "There are 3 of us. If you join there would be..." It didn't help. Even if they got it right, Paul would say he could have got it right quicker and they'd leave in a huff, sometimes in a minute and a half. Jim. A succession of drummers came and went, the dirty swines. All we wanted them to do was play drums. Eventually we heard we had a series of concerts overseas and we had to get somebody on drums immediately. It was a choice between a bloke we knew whose mother owned a coffee pot or a toy wind-up monkey playing cymbals. It was a close call at the audition, but the bloke, Pete, spelled P-E-A-T, just shaved it. Grunge. Yeah, because the monkey never turned up. Pete worst. I remember the audition. They asked if I had a drum kit and I said yep. That was it really. Next thing I knew I was on a ferry to Germany. I bunked with Jim. He used me as a mattress. I could live without him having 2 tugs a night if I'm honest. Paul. And that was it. That was it. There were 4 of us in the band, 5 if you count the bloke we never counted, and we were off to Germany. Grunge. It was good for Jim. People were always saying to him, "I fought the Germans so you could have long hair." And now he could reply, "Piss off." Not all Jim's comebacks were timeless witty epigrams. I didn't read that very well at all, but anyway, I hope you got the inherent humour in there. Bye for now.